There we go. We are rocking and rolling. All right. We are going to jump into. So in a second, we're going to jump into the 5R. So we meant to do this in the Real Talk for Real Estate Pros group, and Zoom was giving us a hard time. So we're just going to go live for everybody. So you all get to participate in this amazing thing. So these are, we're going to walk through 5Rs, and as soon as Alyssa jumps on here with me, we're going to rock and roll. There we go. I'm going to add and rolling. How about that? Okay, so let me do this. All right, I think it's adding her. At least you might have to turn your phone sideways or beyond. Oh, there we go. We're rocking. Ryan, it has been way too long, my friend. It is good to see you on here. There we go. Look at that. We freaking figured it out no matter what. We've got this. Yay. All right, so Alyssa, can you hear me? All right, cool. Let's do this. So here's what we're going to jump into. So if you don't know us, I don't know how you wouldn't, but Alyssa, give us a 2-second interview on why people should listen to this and how badass you are.
Oh,
There you go. There you go. Is it good? All right. Okay, can you tell us who you are?
oh yes, sure. Now I can. Now I'm connected. Sorry, it was taking a long time to connect.
Hit it.
So my name is.
Welcome to the internet.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a long time. My name is Alyssa Hellman. I own a company called Compass South here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been in real estate since 2010, sold up in the DC market, moved down here to Raleigh, kind of on a leap of faith. Met a wonderful lady, got married. Kind of the rest is history. I was a 30 under 30 with Wayne. Although, as we say, it took us far too long to meet one another. But we're so glad we did now.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. All right, so let's jump into this whole thing. So I think one of the things that you and I are passionate about, right? We've been, share the Real Talk page real quick. There we go. So like we've been ultra successful from the outside looking in. We have basically just arrived in life, right? Which is right. I mean, isn't that how you feel? Like you've reached the top of the mountain and it just doesn't get any better from here.
Yeah, I flew all the way here. My arms are so tired.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I love it. All right, so let's jump into this. So here's what I wanted to jump into. And we went through some of this actually when we talked about. It was funny how you and I both spoke at the Realtor, the 30 under 30 reunion, right? Several months ago. I guess it was a while ago now. And it was interesting how so much of our themes overlapped, right? Like how we approached it was different, but our themes were very similar. Talking about like especially entrepreneurs, right? So if you're watching this, you probably resonate with one of us, which means that you're an entrepreneur, you're a high achiever, you're a go-getter, right? And yet we looked at the stats, and here's what's interesting, right? Entrepreneurs are twice as likely to struggle with depression, right? We're like 6 times more likely to have ADHD, right? Like, right, I don't even know, I forgot, lost my train of thought already. All right, we are, right, 5 times more likely to struggle with addiction. We're 10 times more likely to struggle with bipolar disorder, right? So when you look at high achievers, we're phenomenal, and yet it's one of the things about us that's awesome is we can have these awesome highs and be rock and roll. We can also have these really, really crappy lows. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think
like
it's something
kind of common.
Yeah, and it's really common, and one of the themes that I think we talked about in Charleston, and it was one of the first times I felt it talked about really openly too, is not only is this common, but it's so commonly not discussed. I mean, we don't talk about the fact that we are having these really low lows, or because there's such pressure to only talk about the really high highs.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I had a coaching client yesterday, and she said, like I had some suicidal thoughts in the last month. And I think what was helpful to her was helping her realize like that's I mean, obviously it's not awesome, but you're not crazy for having those thoughts. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Here's what we need to do. Here's what we need to work on it. But you're not like it's not good, but you're not abnormal in a sense. And we just need to get some things around you to help with those. And what I've realized is most of us, like we talked about, like we don't talk about it openly enough, and we're not equipped. Like I think here's one of the things that broke my heart was about a year ago, Larry Lee put a post on Facebook, and he said, I wish my dad would have read your book. If he had read your book, he may have not committed suicide.
Wow.
And I was like, that's a pretty bold statement. It's not because my book is like this end all be all. It's because like there's some practical things in there that help people that we just don't talk about enough. We're not equipped. You know what I mean? So here's what I wanted to jump into. And I want your thought on these because we didn't spend 7 hours getting ready for this. But I've got like 5 R's. And when I look at these 5 R's, these are like, in my perception, like 5 tools you can put in your toolbox. And whether you're having a bad day, a bad moment, a bad year, whatever it is, you can grab one of these tools and it helps you recover. And I think one of the big differences between successful people and unsuccessful people is how long it takes them to recover, right? And do they have a process to get back up, or are they winging it? So when you see, Alyssa, when you see people try to recover, what are the common things to do good? What are the common things to do bad? Like just looking at kind of a high level.
Yeah, so I think one, people oftentimes don't actually recover. They take time off and they've got this pressure that they need to recover quickly, which is something I know you've talked about, but they're feeling that they need to recover quickly is actually diminishing their true recovery. So they're not really doing anything that's actually recovering them or allowing themselves to recover quickly. They're just taking a quick break. And that's something that like you might as well not take the break if that's how you're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I was talking to another client a little while ago, and she said that her mom had passed away years ago. And I said, okay, what did you do to kind of to mourn that? What did you do to process that? And she was like, basically nothing. You know what I mean? I was like, well, maybe we should do something because it's hanging out there. But you do, as high achievers, we have this belief that like, don't be a baby, don't be a victim, don't give up, don't settle, don't stop. It's like grind. It's whole like grind hustle mentality that's such bullshit. By the way, this calls for adults, so like, hey. But like we have this mentality that's like not healthy. It's not real. Would you agree?
Totally. And I mean, like, not only is it not healthy, it's like, yes or no, you can't escape these thoughts. You can't escape these emotions and these moments. And so by you not taking the time to recover, what you're actually doing is you're just delaying the inevitable. And I think that's what so many of us miss. And those of us who have been in really dark places, like you or myself, like you start to say, wow, I wish I had taken the time and like really felt that or really processed that. And when we're trying to recover so quickly, when I say that we're not recovering, we're not processing. We're not having those emotions. And then we're trying to push through. But at the end of the day, like if you try to run a car, keep driving a car on E, like the car eventually stops and you will too.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly. Like I always look at like you got this big gash on your foot, and like it's not the end of the world, but like we should take care of it. Like it probably needs 20 stitches. You know what I mean? And people are like, no, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. I'm fine. Right? But it's like that's gonna turn into gangrene, and you're gonna lose your leg, right? Like maybe take a second and get some stitches so you don't lose the freaking leg. And you see high achievers do this all the time. It's like they're trying to hold back the water, and then all of a sudden the water gets so bad that they have this like breakdown, crash and burn moment, like #me, and like it happens. So let's give these 5 R's. So here's the 5, and I want to hear what you have to add to these. So the first one I think is like you got basically these 5 R's. If you're writing these down, you know we've got reframe, reshift, refocus, re-engage, and re-energize. So when we're talking about refocus, refocus is reframe is so huge, and your ability to change the experiences you have. And I think the reframe is there's a lot of different examples of reframe, but you know when you're the example we gave the other day, you're driving down the road, somebody cuts you off in traffic. You have the option to let that mess up your entire day, or reframe your experience and go, maybe that dude's just trying to get his wife to the hospital. I don't know what's going on in their mind, right? Or reframe. How many people do you go like hear you say like real estate is so hard, like it's so hard, whatever. It's like I love you and I get that it's not easy, and yet like for me, like packing shingles up 3 flights of stairs is hard. You know what I mean? Like working to hope I have enough money to like food to give my family tonight for dinner is hard. Yeah. Like I get that this is tough, but it's not. It's all about perspective and reframing. Agreed?
Yeah. I mean, I love the example that you've used of instead of have to, it's that I get to. I mean, like, I'm probably in the boat with most parents right now where my kids are not back in school yet. They go back on Monday. And, like, literally, this is the last weekday of summer. And I'm like, but I also am trying to, like, I'm going to take the afternoon and spend it with them because, like, I get to do that. I get to have them home. And I know that once they're back in school, I'm not going to feel that way. And so I think that's so important of reframing. And it's so difficult to do in the moment. And that's where that pause becomes so important because, like, when you're stressed and you're hectic, like, you're not going to take that moment to reframe it. It takes slowing down enough to say, okay, like, am I being a little crazy here? Like, how can I reframe this?
Dude, huge. Like I had that client the other day talk about how her mom had died years ago, you know, and she said one of the things that just breaks her heart is when she sees her friends or other people complaining about their mom or going, I can't believe my mom did this, or I can't believe mom did this. And she's just like, it breaks my heart. I'm sitting there just almost bawling because, like, I would give anything to have my mom back, you know?
Right.
And it's like, wow, what a powerful reframe. You know what I mean? Like, all of us, like, our moms drive us crazy sometimes. And by the way, we're going to drive our kids crazy. But just like that powerful reframe, you know, for me, it happened years ago. I mean, I've had so many of these, but, you know, I was in Guatemala and seeing these lepers, right? And realizing that all these people that had leprosy were trying to get this medication we had that would allow them to feel pain again. So right, because leprosy kills your nerves, and that's why it usually dies. You get a wound, you don't know it's there, right? So like all these people in this line are trying to get this medication that will allow them to feel pain. And all of a sudden it's like, holy cow, these people are begging to feel pain again, where most people that I know are begging to not feel pain. They're doing everything they can to not experience pain. And it's just like reframe this whole experience. Like, I don't think that a pain-free experience is really what we're after at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think it's like, it's almost hypocritical the way that we act about it too. Like, I think, you know, like any parent has probably sat at their dinner table with their kid when you made something that they're not wanting to eat. And you're sitting there saying what your parents said to you of like, there's people that don't have food. Like, you need to be grateful that you have something on your plate. But like when we look ourselves in the mirror, we don't have that same attitude towards things. And I mean, it is all really relative. Like, to them, that's the thing that they're struggling with reframing. For us, it might be like, you know, man, I have too many clients. Like, you know, like, that's, if you reframe that, is that really, do you have too many clients, or like, you so blessed that you have so much business?
Yes. Yeah. Dude, so huge. And I mean, I find myself do that with my kids all the time. You know what I mean? I'm getting frustrated with my kids. And then I'm thinking about other people I know that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to try and have a kid, or they've lost a child. You know what I mean? And I'm going, man, they would give anything to be trying to get their kid to eat peas right now. You know what I mean? Like, and just having that perspective. And I think what's cool about you and I is like, this isn't about rainbows and butterflies. Like, this isn't about like, hey, you know, bullshit and everybody be happy all the time, whatever. But this is like about like, I get, like you just said, like, I get to do this versus I have to, and changing your entire experience, right? So I think, you know, the first one is reframe, right? How can I reframe this experience and have a totally different experience here that serves me instead of hurts me? And then the second one is reshift. And I think reshift is, we have the freaking power to reshift our energy, like at any moment, you know what I mean? And when I look at that, I look at like, I have the choice to be a victim or a victor in this situation. I have the choice to go into judgment right now or go into learning mode. And for me, I mean, I remember, I'm so good at beating the shit up out of myself and going into judgment, right? Like, I am awesome at judger mode, right? Like, I've got like a bachelor's in judger, probably my doctorate in judger at this point, right? Like, just beating the crap out of myself, but realizing like that doesn't serve me. And I can reshift and turn that judgment into like, hey, what did I learn? This isn't who I am. It's just something that happened. And turn into like, what did I learn? What am I going to do different and move forward? And like, I think that reshift is huge. Yeah.
And I think it's also like, not only in how you're talking about it, but sometimes like the reshifting of energy. Like, I tend to get really worked up and take things personally. And it's not even only judgment. It's just like, if something doesn't go how I thought it would, like, I have all of this excess energy. And so like, rather than get worked up and yell and scream or be frustrated, like, it might make sense to go for a walk or go ride a bike or go exercise or do something and like reshift that energy to something productive. that
Yes.
maybe doesn't like fit in my schedule that day at that moment, but like is still a good shift of that energy.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, like just realizing like you have the choice. And I think one thing that you kind of hinted on there just for a second is interesting. And what I want, you know, if you're watching this, right, you're probably a higher achiever. You're probably a go-getter. Like you want to get better. And just realizing that everything that and this is my personal perspective, I think everything that makes you a badass also has like this hidden blind spot. Right?
Yeah.
So like all this amazing energy has a blind spot, like sometimes you don't take care of yourself. The ability to really focus can create blind spots. Like the fact that you have really great energy can mean sometimes you have really crappy energy. Like just realizing everything that makes me awesome can have another side of the coin that I don't have to like fix myself. I just have to be aware of that. And by that awareness, I can reshift it. And I think for me, one of my big ahas about reshifting was, and I just had this year, was realizing I thought choosing to be a victor was kind of like a one-time choice, right? Like I drew the line in the sand. I'm never going to be a victim again. Like, boom, I got this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I realized is like I did that, right? And at the same time, for me, like I have to sometimes make that choice like 50 times a day to not be a victim.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like not like slip into that. Like do you find, I mean, are you the same way too? Like you just find like you've got to make that choice multiple times sometimes?
Yeah, and I think again, like it's that moment of pause, and like that moment of pause. Just to like full disclosure, everyone, I really struggle with that. Like this is like one of my big flaws. It's something that takes a lot of work on my part. It's something that I'm absolutely imperfect about. But that moment of pause is really what you need to reshift, to reframe, to apply any of these R's that you're going to talk about too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I love that you said like, it takes a while to get good at this, right? Like this is not like, and
and by a while you mean like lifetime.
I teach this stuff. Yeah, like probably like, until like yes,
like
yeah, probably for the rest of my freaking life.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And you know, I look at it as kind of like a muscle. You know what I mean? And like you just have to work that muscle over time, and you get where I used to be like. You know, people ask me if I have bad days. I'm like, yeah, I have bad days, but the reality is I used to have like bad weeks. And then now I have like, you know, I would have a bad couple days. And then I got to the point where I'd have a bad day. And it's like, now I can shift my energy in a couple minutes. You know, so it's not about being perfect, it's just about catching it further. Like that recovery time is so huge. So if you're writing this down, we got 2 so far, right? Reframe and then reshift. And what you realize is a lot of these kind of tie together, but I think it's helpful to have them all lined out. And then the third one for me is refocus. And like this, like Tony Robbins has said it forever, like where your focus goes, your energy flows. And like, have you ever met someone that like you would think that they were on a treasure hunt to find as many negative things in a day as they can?
Yeah.
Like they think there's a prize, right? They get home at the end and they're like, I found 48 things that were bad in the world. Like, where's my ribbon?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's just their focus.
I agree. And it's, I mean, that's one of those things that, like, I always say to people, I say, are you having a bad day or did something happen bad today? Yeah. And it's like, it's almost going back to the other R, just like reshifting of being a victor versus a victim. Like, it's the same idea, but that refocus of, okay, like this bad thing happened. Let me pause, feel it, move on, and refocus my energy to something productive. Like that's where that's where like the crux of this is.
Yeah. Well, and for you, like I would ask, like, think about it for a second. What are some things you've refocused that have changed in your life? And I know for me, a couple of those are, you know, focusing, and this is still, it's a daily struggle, focusing on my race and not somebody else's, right? Like it's so easy for me to compare myself to everybody else and focus on what their success is instead of running my own race, right? I find I can get into that all the time. Or focus on, overly focus on what I did wrong instead of what I'm going to do different next time. So I know, like for me, that focus is a big thing. I've got to focus on my race and not really give a rip about what other people think, as bad as that sounds.
No, comparison is a huge one for me too, where, you know, it's so easy, especially in real estate, right? It's so easy to go and look at, you know, what other people are doing and what their circumstances are, and not look at what their circumstances are and say, well, why am I not doing that? But like the stressors that you have at home, the lifestyle that you have, like all of these things play into the larger thing. And so, I mean, this year, for instance, I got really clear about like, what are my personal goals that I really want to achieve, and like ignore what any other coach is doing, what any of the other people are doing, because at the end of the day, like, they're not fighting my battle every single day. I am. And so that's where it has to make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just like you said, like somebody said this to me one time, like you're comparing your place in a game to where somebody else is at in that game, but you're not even playing the same game. It's like we didn't start at the same place. We're not dealing with the same stuff. We don't have the same goals. We don't want to go to the same place. Like, I'm comparing where I'm at in Monopoly to where they're at in chess and beating myself out. You know what I mean? And here's what I've realized. There's always going to be somebody doing better than me in one area or another, right? Like, there's always going to be somebody making more money, always somebody that's going to, be fitter, whatever it is, right? I got to run my race and stop comparing myself to them. I can use them as inspiration, but I got to be careful I'm not using them as comparison. You know what I mean?
And that's the key. And that gets so muddy too, of like, am I going to be inspired by this person and motivated by this person, or am I going to constantly compare myself to this person? And the comparison is a really toxic thing that I think so many of us do. And honestly, the comparison is really, to me, what can send you into a really dark place. Yeah.
Dude, I think it's one of the biggest mental issues we have right now in this country, right? I don't think that's too strong a statement. I think that people wake up, we start scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is, and the first thing we do in the morning isn't celebrate our success, isn't remind ourselves of who we are, isn't focus on our goals. We automatically start comparing ourselves to everybody else, and we compare our real life to their highlight reel. You know what I mean? Yep. And immediately we start beating the shit about ourselves. What a disempowering way to start your day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we do that, throughout the day. Man, it's just, I think it's toxic. I think it's taking. I literally believe it's taking lives. Yes, I literally believe 100%. That people are choosing to step out of life because they're comparing themselves with an unrealistic measuring tape, right? And I think it's total bullshit.
So let's talk about a good way to notice if you need to refocus, because I think that's key too. Yeah. A great way to realize if you need to refocus is look down your tasks for the day, or if somebody were to ask you, what are you going to do today? Are a lot of the focuses on things other than yourself, one, which can, again, society tells us you want to be, you want to not always be focused inward and on yourself, but that's not the case. You need to be focused on this if you're going to be able to be the best version of this. And that's where, like, you can't step outside yourself until you've got yourself right. In order to be the best mom, the best agent, the best coach, the best wife, any of that stuff, I've got to be okay first. Yeah. And that requires that I'm pouring into myself too. And that's where it's difficult. And so if you're going down your list of tasks and nothing is focused on you and getting your mind right or your body right or your soul right, you need to refocus. Like, it's not an option. It's a necessity at this point.
Yeah. It's funny. One of my clients a couple weeks ago, I convinced him to take a day, like one day off every 8 weeks, right? Like, this is a big deal, right? Or 6 weeks. So I take one day off every 6 weeks. And I was like, all right, what are you going to do? He's like, all right, I'll take my son to do this and my wife. And I was like, no, you're not hearing me. Like, I want you to take some time for you. And it's like, he couldn't even understand the conversation we were having for a minute. You know what I mean? Like it was blowing his mind because all he does is take care of everybody else. And I was like, dude, you are freaking crashing. You're not gonna be able to serve anybody if you don't take care of you. But it was such a foreign concept to him. It felt so selfish and it felt egotistical and it felt whatever it is. But the reality is, if he does do that, he's not gonna be able to help everybody else. If your bucket is on freaking empty, you can't give anything to anybody else. And I think, like, you talked about this a lot at that. It was like, you got to come up with like a maintenance plan.
Yeah. My good friend Stephanie Lanier always says, you can't pour from an empty cup. And that is the absolute truth. And so not only do you need to know that you've got to refocus, you also need to be able to identify what helps you fill your bucket. And so, like, for instance, for me, like we talked about it, one of my big things is exercise. Like, I have to take that time in the day. And if I don't get that time in the day, I'm cranky and I don't feel I'm not operating on all cylinders. And it's not necessarily a health thing. It's an excess energy thing for me. Yeah. And totally. It's just really important. But I know, like, if I'm feeling off, that's something that can kind of help recenter me. So being able to identify not just what are these red flags or I need to now focus on me, figure out, like, what's going to help you fill your cup. Is it going to be like you go for a drive? Is it going to be maybe you go get an ice cream cone? Like everybody needs an ice cream cone sometimes, Wayne.
Yes, I would like one right now. Yeah, actually,
Exactly.
that would be, yeah. Well, and I think like you just said, paying attention to that. So here's what I would say to everybody if you're watching this is like, start paying attention. You shouldn't feel like crap all the time, right? Doesn't mean you don't do hard work, but you shouldn't feel like crap all the time. And you know the difference between like I think the simplest way to say it is like in the zone or tilted. That's just the language I use.
Yeah.
But like I'm in the zone when I'm like focused and aware and confident and curious and having fun and like loving and laughing and everything else. When I'm tilted, I can get oversensitive. I can get obsessed. I can get irrational. I can get a little bit paranoid. I can get antisocial. Like all this stuff kind of starts to rise. Resentful. That's a freaking huge one, right? So when you feel that stuff rising up, like take a breath, grab one of these 5 R's and go, okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to reframe, refocus, re-energize? Like, what do I need to do to just get back to that badass that I know that I am? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you need to do it like while you feel that feeling building. Like, and I'm awful at this. Like, you can't wait until you get to the boiling point. You've got to do it as you feel that feeling rising, so that you can do it before you're at that point.
Yes. Yep. All right, so I got 2 more here. So the fourth one would be re-engage. And when I say re-engage, sometimes you just got to take immediate action. And what I mean by that is, and I see people not re-engaging for a couple reasons, right? Sometimes they're in a little bit of a wallow state. Sometimes they're in judger state. Sometimes they're in victim state, and you just need to take some action. Sometimes people don't take action because they're trying to figure out the next 45 steps, and you just need to do the next one. So a lot of times the question I ask myself is like, I don't know what the next 48 steps are, but what's the next right decision I need to make? What's the next right thing to do? And it may be something little, but what's that next thing I need to do to get me to re-engage? And the other thing I've realized for me is almost all of my stress comes from a lack of clarity. So oftentimes I need to, if I'm stressed out about money, it's because I don't know how I'm going to take care of money. I don't know what I'm going to do. If I'm stressed about my time, it's because I haven't figured out what I'm going to do in the hours that I have. So it's like re-engage is so huge. And re-engage maybe, like you said, just make one next phone call, or just go to the gym for 5 minutes, right? Not the full hour. If that's all you got to do. Just make one decision.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think like the re-engage is like the first step. Like, and I think that's what's so important is so many of us kind of go into this mode of like a solution mindset, which is a great thing to like quality to have. But at the same time, like, you don't have to have it all figured out on day one. So like the example I use is our kids are switching school districts this year, and our daughter is really nervous about Monday and how she's not going to know her way around. And I said to her, you are wanting to know where everything in that school is before you've walked in the school.
Right.
You're wanting to get the high school diploma while you're in 4th grade.
Right.
That's not how it works. Like, you need to follow the first step and, like, go the first week. And then if you're still struggling, like, then we can work on, like, some other things. And so, like, our form of re-engagement is, like, okay, so what's the first thing that will help with that stressor? Right. Maybe it's looking at a map. Maybe it's, picking up the phone. Maybe it's these small incremental actions that when you build off them, they'll have that compound effect.
Yes. Well, and I love that whole thing of like, sometimes you have to, the feeling usually shows up after you take the action.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And I can tell you almost, I'll just be really blunt. Every loser out there, I'm being a jerk, okay, right? But most people that are failing in life, meaning they're not going after their potential, they're not hitting their goals. Most people that are failing are waiting for the feeling to show up. They're waiting for motivation. They're waiting for inspiration. They're waiting. And the reality is, it's just like going to the gym. Usually you don't feel like going, and 5 minutes after you're there, you feel like a freaking rock star, right? So
absolutely.
The moment, right? That feeling usually comes after you take the action, which I think is incredibly true. All right, so the fifth one is this. The fifth one, and I think, Alyssa, this is where you're so good at, is talking about re-energizing. Sometimes you just got to re-energize. And for me, that's maybe meditate for 5 minutes, or go for a walk, or drink some water, listen to some gangster rap and hit my caffeine, like whatever it is. Right. Like, so how do you re-energize in those moments?
Yeah. I mean, I can always get down with some 90s gangster rap. But I really think like for energizing for me is all about my mornings. And so like starting my day the right way is really where I pull all my energy from. And then if I feel off, or if my morning didn't start correctly or things like that, that's when I implement that re-engagement thing. And I say, what did I miss on this morning? And so if I have to start really early on something and like I missed the gym or something like that, I try and find that time later in the day and make sure it makes it into my schedule so that I know, okay, I'm not going to feel off all day. I've got this appointment that I've got to make. That's when they can do it. That's when I can do it. And then I'm going to kind of recenter myself and get that energy back.
Dude, that's so huge. Well, it's funny. I think I can't remember who I was talking to about this yesterday, but we were talking about how, like, you look at a football team, they don't run 15 plays and then reflect, right? They run like one or two plays and then they huddle up, right? What's working, what's not working, right? Like, they don't wait till like, oh shoot, today's toast, or hopefully tomorrow's better. How many people like at 9 o'clock are saying, well, today's gonna suck? It's like, you can re-huddle up and get your shit back together at any moment, right? So re-huddle up, get your stuff back engaged. Don't go the whole 24 hours or 3 days or a week like I used to do. And then I think what's huge is what you just said, and I think this is probably the last thing that I want to hammer home is this. So make sure you get this. Like, what's your plan to not drift off? Like, what do you do? What's your momentum plan to have those shitty experiences less? Right, and I actually have a whole momentum worksheet that I came up with. It's like a blueprint, and if anybody wants that, let me know. We'll post it everywhere, and if you want that, let me know. But like, what's your momentum plan? Like, what's your stay in a great state plan? So like, when you're in the morning, what do you do to like guarantee you're in a great mindset going into the day instead of just waiting for it to show up?
Yeah, so I'm huge on planning. So I think so many of us wake up before we're even out of the bed. We're looking at our calendar for the day on our phone, and we're stressed, and our energy is boiling, and we're kind of going into that victim mode of like, oh, today's going to be rough. Like, I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be ready for a beer by the end of the day. Like, we go into that mode. But for me, planning has been huge because it's allowed me to prioritize my things and prioritize my schedule and make my schedule instead of having my schedule make me. And that to me is key. And that's what I'm talking about is I can't wake up, have a shitty morning, have an appointment, and then just randomly like go to the thing that is going to energize me. I have to plan for that. And so that comes into play when I'm looking at my schedule the day before, the morning of, the night before, whatever it's going to be, or at the beginning of the week. And I'm saying, okay, that day is going to be back to back to back. So I know this is the time that I've really got to get this stuff done. And if I don't get that stuff done, my energy is going to be off. And here's my thing. Like, you have your saying at Hero Nation, but I'm a big believer that, like, my family deserves the best version of me. I deserve the best version of me. My clients deserve it. Like, all of that is about me, too. And I'm not willing to give that really bad version of myself because I wasn't willing to draw boundaries and set priorities.
So huge. Well, and what it makes me, I'm so glad you said that because it made me think about, like, crappy stuff's going to happen. And it may not be your fault, right? Like a kid gets sick, the buyer's back out of a transaction, like somebody rear-ends you. Whatever happened may not be your fault, but your choice to use one of the 5 R's, your choice to get back in a good place, like it's your responsibility. It may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility to like level up your mindset, to level up your mental strength, to level up the tools you use to get your mind back in a good place. Like you said, like there's that book, you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. And like, there's a lot of truth to that. Like, you can't afford to stay in a crappy state, right? Your dreams are too big, right? Your talent is too much. There's too many people that are waiting for you to show up in a bigger way to help them live their epic lives. Like, it may not be your fault. Some stuff's my fault. Like, sometimes I screw myself over, right? But sometimes it may not be your fault. It is 100% your responsibility. And like, that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, like, the analogy that I've used for people with this is if your house caught on fire, God forbid, your house caught on fire, you're going to figure out a way to get upstairs and get your kids and get them out of the house, or get your dogs, or get your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever. You're going to figure out a way to get those folks out of the house. But when you are not energizing properly, when you are not focused properly, when you don't have the right mindset, what you are literally doing is cutting your feet off. You're cutting your knees off. You're cutting your legs off. You're making things so much more difficult for yourself and for those around you to deliver your best self and to deliver your best performance for folks.
So true. So true. Well, and I think like I look at that and we could probably do a whole call at some point on like what we do to stay in a great state. But it's funny, I had somebody reach out to me the other day and go like, I really want to hire a coach, but I don't have enough time to do it now. Maybe I'll do it, in the winter or whatever it was. And first off, like I've been that guy before. Like I've been the one that said that. So like no judgment, and yet the perspective is like that's like a runner saying, I don't have time to tie my shoes before this marathon because I want to win.
Right.
Like when you're not doing the morning rituals, when you don't have, people like you and I speaking into your life, when you don't have a community around you, when you're not, like you said at the thing, like drink some freaking water. Like when you're not drinking water and taking care of your body, like when you're not doing that stuff, right? Like when you're not doing that stuff, like you're setting yourself up for failure. And the reality is it's tough to take this level of responsibility, but anything else is tougher at the end of the day. Right, I think a lot of people
we think in that moment too.
Yes,
like that's the thing. Like if you're struggling and you're saying, "Oh, I don't have time to tackle this right now," then play it out. Play it out if you don't tackle it right now. So be that marathon runner and saying, "I don't have time to tie my shoes before the race starts." Well, what happens when you trip and fall and cut your leg? That the rest of that marathon is going to be a hell of a lot harder. What happens if you don't make those phone calls? Well, November's business, November's pipeline might not look that great, so play it out. And then I find that as a really great tool to use all of these R's and say, do I really need to right now?
I think that's huge. And I love what you said about playing out. Like ask yourself, think about it this way, like, unsuccessful people make decisions in the moment. Successful people use time travel. Just like you're talking about, right? They go, a year from now, how's it going to play out? A year from now, what's it going to look like? What's the impact of my kids a year from now if I do this, or on my business, whatever it is? And so many unsuccessful people make those decisions in the moment, right? And they're living in the top left-hand box of the time matrix instead of that top right-hand box, which is an epic freaking life. So I think this is about, people love to feel, and I had times like this, right? People love to feel disempowered because then they don't have to take full responsibility for their life.
Yep.
Right? They don't have to take responsibility for the decisions they're making or they're not making, and which feels better in the moment. And a year from now, 5 years from now, 30 years from now, it's wicked painful. So take the freaking responsibility. Learn that these 5 R's, the tools for your mental health are just as important as the physical tools. And that's why we're doing this call, because most people don't have a toolbox with actual tools in it to take care of their mind, right? You got screwdrivers, drills, all that other stuff laying around your house. Build the mental toolbox. So, all right.
That should be our 6th R, responsibility.
Yes. There you go. Boom. Boom. All right.
The bonus.
Last words, my friends. Any advice, wisdom, thing that we haven't talked about? I mean, we could go on for 17 hours on this. But any other piece of wisdom you want to drop?
No, I think it's important. Have those check-ins with yourself. Something that was repeatedly said at the 30 Under 30 Mastermind, and it's something I've continued to say, is don't suffer in silence. I know that Wayne, myself, tons of other people are always going to be on the other end of that phone. Please reach out if you ever feel like you need to talk, feel like you need anything, feel like you need help implementing these R's. I know that both of us would be absolutely willing to help, but definitely don't suffer in silence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, like, take action. Like, take action on these R's. Like, write out what you're going to do. Make a commitment. You know what I mean? And, you have an incredible group coaching program. I have one too. Like, and I think that being a part of a group is so huge. Like, if you're not part of a strong group, like check those out and join one of those. Like, be in a community of people that have your back. And also people understand, like, you're weird. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're watching, like, you're probably a little weird. You got your own struggles, and have a community around you that loves and supports you through that. I think that's so huge. I think a lot of people are trying to win the battles on their own, and I don't think we were meant to do that. I think we were meant to do this together.
Hey, let's all be weird together.
Amen. There we go. All right, my friend. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
If you want on this post, like either post like your morning routine, I'll share some of this stuff too, my momentum plan, everything else. But yeah, I love it. Thanks for being you.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys, too.
All right, go kick some ass. Be your own hero. Bye, y'all.